Professor Kukral here again. I'm in an old growth forest. I think you can see it's pretty old. An old growth forest here in the west coast and the northwest. This is a maritime climate zone. And we're going to talk about marine climates and how they influence the ground cover, the vegetation, the human development, everything else. What kind of trees are these? Well, here in the northwest, I'm in Oswald Park. We have western hemlocks, we have red cedars, and we have some of the Sitka spruce in the southerly location. But what I want to talk to you today is about climate and the different climate zones and how climate influences vegetation in different parts of the US, Europe, Africa. We'll talk about tropical climates later in class, but right now I'm going to focus on some things right here. Okay, so hold on a second. Well, I just wanted to get off the trail a little bit. There are other people. We're in Oswald West State Park here. And it's in Clatsop County in western Oregon. And Oswald West, it's an interesting story why we have an old growth forest. What's the difference between an old growth forest and a virgin forest? Nothing really. It's just we've changed what we call them. We really don't use the term virgin forest anymore because we really don't know the whole history of everything around us. So we say old growth forest. And obviously the vegetation is quite different than Indiana. Indiana, we have a lot of maple, hickory, sycamore, hardwood trees. Out here we have a lot of firs, and we have hemlock as one, and Sitka spruce as I mentioned, and the western red cedar, which is enormous. This is an area that's not been logged. Much of Oregon has been commercially logged. That was the biggest industry for most of Oregon's existence. We also have a lot of ferns growing here, as I think you can see everywhere in the forest. Okay, wildlife is fairly abundant in this part of the world. We have mountain lions, we have black bear, we have a lot of deer, and we have elk. In the rivers we have salmon, and we have all kinds of things in the ocean, which is only about 400 feet away from me right now. I'm going down to the cove here. Why is this called Oswald West? That's an odd name, it seems like, for a park. Well, interesting story with that. Oswald West was the name of the governor of Oregon, Governor West, 1911 to 1915. He was a fairly young man. He was called the boy governor. One of his famous quotes was he wanted to shoot a bartender because he was a big prohibition guy. He wanted alcohol gone from the state because of all the problems he saw it causing in the mining camps and lumber camps especially. But one thing he did which has lasting impact was that he declared the whole entire coast of Oregon to be a state highway. Now that may sound a little strange at first, but he declared it to be public access state highway for people to get up and down the coast, 5 feet above high tide line. What he did was, by doing that, he made it public access for everybody. Anybody can go to the coast of Oregon. It's open to everybody. You don't hear about people going to the Washington coast, for example. In the state of Washington, most of the coastline is privately owned, and you really can't get access to it unless it's in a park area. And as you know, on the East Coast, you have all kinds of private ownership of the coast, of beaches. But Oregon is the only state where the entire coast is public access and publicly owned. And Governor West did that as a young man in 1913. I think he passed the legislation after riding his horse up and down the coast here and decided it just needs to be saved somehow. And it's been fought in court by developers many, many times, and it's always stood the test that the coast of Oregon will remain public land and public access. So this wonderful state park of old growth forest is named for him. He was only a one-term governor, lived out his life here for a long time though, passed away in 1960. So we can owe it to Governor Oswald West that we have these wonderful state parks out here in the state of Oregon and access to the entire coastline and beaches. I'm not too far from the highway. You might hear some highway noises here, but I'm going to head in a little bit more and see what else I can find. There are some amazing trees here, that's for sure. This is a really neat place. You can see all of the trees here growing out of a fallen tree. Okay, that's a symbiotic relationship, except the one tree is probably dead, that everything's growing out, so it's not quite symbiotic. But anyways, this is just an amazing area. Why does everything grow so green and lush here? Part of it has to do with the large amount of rainfall. Okay, right now this is the month of August, so it's a pretty dry month. But normally we have rainfall that is some of the most, I'd say, in the US. Not the heaviest, but consistent rainfall. When we have a lot of mosses, we have a lot of ferns here. We have a very different landscape than we're used to seeing. And part of that, again, is the influence of a maritime climate. Okay, so hold on a second. We'll see what else we can find. Wow, this tree is about 7 feet across. And it looks like it had probably fallen and then was cut for this trail here years ago. A tree like this could be about 800 to 1500 years old. Okay, there are some nice markings on it from visitors. I can see that, somebody's name. And if we could count the rings, if we could see the dendrochronology, we could age the tree, we could get a good idea. But I don't really have time for that today. We're going to be looking maybe for some other neat things to see. Here we have some Sitka spruce. Sitka spruce, you know, go all the way up into Alaska. And they stretch down here. It's a very good wood to use for resonating. Soundboards of instruments are made from Sitka spruce quite often. They're pretty good sized trees. You know, I mentioned tree rings, dendrochronology, a minute ago. That's a pretty serious subject matter, actually, because we know a lot about past climates by looking at the growth of trees. We can tell by looking at the dendrochronology of trees here that there was a massive tsunami in the year 1700. And in 1700, the water came up probably a couple miles in some places. It was devastating to the local people who lived in this part of the world at that time. And we haven't had one since, but this is a tsunami zone, obviously, anytime you're near a coast. Tsunamis are caused by earthquakes in most cases. So let's move on a little bit. I can hear the ocean. Do we have redwood trees here? No, these aren't redwoods anywhere. Redwoods, the northern limit of redwoods, mostly grown in California, is in southern Oregon. So about, I'd say 150 to 200 miles south of here, you have to go to find redwoods. But we do have, like I said, the western red cedar, the hemlock, the Sitka spruce, and a few other big ones here. So as I said, we're in a tsunami hazard zone right here. Here's a warning about it, and also about the park itself and things you should do here and watch out for. We're right here at Cape Falcon. We're between Neahkahnie Mountain and Cape Falcon, and we have this nice little cove here called Smuggler Cove. A nice geographic feature, you know, all these things. A cove, a lookout mountain. That's Neahkahnie. We'll talk about that when we go up there sometime. And you can see there's lots of rules and regulations, as there should be, because there are a lot of people that love to visit these places more and more, and it's getting difficult to find wilderness in the lower 48. You really have to go further and further out. So here we are. Here's a bridge. I think I'm going to go across. Ugh. Let's see how this bridge is. It looks pretty nice. It looks fairly new. I shouldn't jump up and down and make it swing. We used to do that. But a nice little stream here. Oh, there I am. Okay, so back here on the bridge in Oswald West State Park. Anyways, let's head up a little bit more and see what we can find up the road here, up the path. I think it goes up higher. Have some enormous trees coming up. This is one way to know what wildlife has been here recently. And I'm probably not going to go further up this trail right today. But it is beautiful. So I want you all to think about state parks that you're familiar with in your home state, in your home city, in your home country, wherever that may be. Think about the state parks that you've been in. Think about the vegetation. Think about the trees, the ground cover. Think about the climate you're in at that time. Can it be a semi-arid, dry climate? A lot of our national parks are in the American Southwest. Or is it a maritime climate where you have the influence of the oceans? We have that a lot in Western Europe, as we'll see in my Europe class. But think about the state parks you know. What do you know about them? What do you know about their history, how they were organized, who set them aside? All the important in understanding the local geography of places that we preserve and protect, like this one right here, thanks to Governor West many years ago. Okay, so let's go down to the beach for the last part of today, down to Smuggler Cove and down to Shorty's, Short Sands Beach, which is a big destination for a lot of people here in Oregon who attempt to surf. Not the biggest waves, but sometimes this is all you got. Well, they don't want us going this way right now. That goes down to the coast. So let's go another way. We're getting closer. Getting a little closer. Look at the tree growing out of the old stump. Wow. Imagining settling this part of the country and trying to clear land for agriculture. Well, that's true everywhere where there were great forests, but I think this was a little more challenging, and people found the soils were not that good for the same crops that they often knew in Europe or in the Midwest. And most of the settlers of Oregon came from the Midwest. They were transplanted Midwesterners when Oregon became a state in 1859. The expansion west, not so much from California, but from states like Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Michigan. Who knows why people left? Maybe better opportunities they felt, but that's what populated this part of the country for the most part. So let's get down to the trail, down to the coast here. Now this area up ahead, I'm sure we're going to find some large mammals in this zone. They're always here. There's a grove of Sitka spruce coming up. So you can see it behind me here, and I think I'm going to head down there now and see what's going on near the water. Looks pretty nice out there. Maybe some rain moving in later. So hold on, let's go down there to the sand on Short Sands Beach, known as Sandy around here. Oh, let me correct that. It's not known as Sandy, it's known as Shorty's. Shorty's is what everyone calls it around here. It is a sandy beach, but they call it Shorty's. This is for you math-oriented people. I'm more earth-oriented. You are here. Pretty much so. That's where we are. Here's even a better map we can look at going down to Shorty's. This is the tsunami evacuation map. I don't know if I could run all the way back to where I started this morning. It's a pretty good bit, but anyways, it's a beautiful cove over here. Oh, the wind's picking up. Here it comes. Marine layer, that's known as, where you have moist air over the ocean coming in, and it can fog the place in. Won't be able to see anything. This doesn't look bad. It's moving south, I think. But big marine layers sometimes really just deluge the coast out here. And if they're in at night, you can't see a thing, and it's pretty tough driving anywhere. Impossible, really. So let's go down here a bit. Erosion's a big problem on the coast. Wind erosion, water erosion. Not a good place to stand probably underneath this, but who knows when it's going to fall next. Might be a while, hopefully. Really nice sand here. I've always liked the sand. It's getting hot here today. It might hit 70. I don't know. It is August, so it's not unusual to hit 70 degrees Fahrenheit. I want you to think about why we set aside places like state parks. It's a piece of land, right? It's a piece of land for everybody to use. How do we determine that it's some place worth saving? Maybe you saw my video of the waterfall earlier, and I spoke about the same issue. Well, it's the same type of deal, a state park. National parks, federal parks, state parks, provincial parks in other countries like Canada. There's something recent in human history. It's only in the late 19th century that we decided, hey, wait a minute, development's great and everything else, but there's these places of extreme beauty that just should be available to everybody. And this is one of them. And it's just a favorite place of mine. So I'm going to have you write a little bit about this, about a state park that you know in your own town or state. And I'll give you some instructions on that. And let's see, where am I? There I am. Yeah, so as the wind's picking up here, I think it's about lunchtime. Getting a little bit of sun out here again today. And I'm gonna head up and get some Thai food up near the Columbia River this morning. One of my favorites. That's, you know, being international, that's the international segment of today. And I think that's all. I think that's all we got. We'll do another one on the tide pools around here. And we'll talk about tides as well, and looking at tides and how they work a little bit. I know we normally don't do this in world geography, but I'm taking advantage of the situation, the coronavirus unfortunate situation, and I'm out here in the Oregon coast for a while. I plan to retire out here, actually. That's the goal. So it's a place I know pretty well. So that's all for today. Bye.